So I used to watch this show called Dirty Jobs. I don't have a lot of time nowadays, but I clearly remember watching a whole bunch of episodes of this show. It's a very interesting show, or was. I don't know if it's still on air. Um, and Oh, okay. Sorry, I was just reading the Wikipedia entry. Got sidetracked. And Micro is an interesting guy, and he's rich. I always kind of like to look up the net worth of individuals. There's a reason for that. Um, so, anyways, I think there's a huge opportunity for bringing disrupting the space. This is a huge industry. I think it's very inefficient. It's a huge drain on the taxpayers' resources, money that should be spent on other areas, helping to open up the industries of the future, support the community, uh, as well as other things, cycles of innovation, so on and so forth. When I look at the um, process, and I've looked at this for a couple of decades, even just kind of growing up as a kid in parts of Middle East, the process is still the same. A truck comes into your neighborhood. It's either driven by one or two individuals. Um, Back in the days, it used to be the case that there would be two individuals in the back of the truck. One person would be driving it. Nowadays, it seems like it's only one person doing the job of driving the truck as well as um, picking up the trash. So I think garbage disposal overall is a pretty big industry. I don't know anything about this industry other than what I've observed. And again, to me, it seems like a very inefficient system. Uh, the disruptions that will be brought about within this area will not just bring about those efficiencies and help save money for the taxpayer, but it would also be it would put an end to jobs that I consider as toil, uh, that I consider as should not be done by humans, and I believe that human capacity, cognition should be diverted towards more uh, towards better endeavors. I am not against all dirty jobs. This is not a tirade against micro or the show. I'm just saying that there's a huge opportunity for bringing about disruption in this space. So I looked at some brief numbers. I just Googled simple terms like garbage disposal budget for a city over a certain population size. So some of the links that came up when you Google those terms, and I'll plug the links into this video's description. One of the statistics that came up was for the city of Chicago, 2012 statistics. The actual budget allocated for something like garbage disposal for the city was about $121 million for the year 2012. When you factor in a couple of things like workers' compensation, insurance, healthcare, dental plans, so on and so forth, the cost actually rises up to $200 million for the city. So then I started looking at some of the other. I don't know if I can actually pull the actual article from New York Times. I don't want to get sued, but this is Wikipedia, and here's a list of some of the bigger cities in the world, and some of these cities have huge population densities. This is like 10 times the size of Chicago. I think it's 10 times. So this is like 25 million. Could be actually, no, this, how much is that? This was the population of, I can't do the math right now. Population of Shanghai. Yeah, so that's definitely a mega city. That's where the confusion was. The Google saying 14 million, but these are 2000 statistics. But if you look at it, whoops, if you look at it right now, it's well over 24 million people. So at that rate, the budget, if you kind of factor it that way, should be in the billions, and that's just for one city. And there are at least 90 major cities in the world population 3 million or more. Most of the cities in America have a population of 3 million or less. In fact, I think there's only 3 or 4 major cities in the United States that have a population of uh, around 3 million. So, United States. So, New York is one, LA is another. I think Houston and Chicago would be the third and the fourth, or the fourth and the third in that range. But these are the 100 cities all over the world with a huge population density. If you kind of factor in that each one of these cities spend at least $150 million on garbage disposal, then the number, according to Wolfram Alpha, is a simple mathematical equation, comes to about $15 billion. But like I said, considering the fact that some of these cities, their population size is much more compared to the population size of a city like Chicago, hence, so would the operating budget for something like a waste management company would be. If I look at the actual revenues of, I see a lot of waste management, which I believe is a private enterprise. I think they're based out of Texas, Houston, I believe. But their revenues are in the billion-dollar range. So this is not exactly revenue. This is net income. So they are in the positive. And if you actually Google things like, I hope nothing embarrassing pops up on my computer. Waste manage and revenue 2015. I don't know. I think their 2016 statistics are out, but let's just take a look at this. All right. It's just loading. Is it loading? Oh, it's right here. PDF. I hope my internet doesn't go down right now. I'm just going to look up the interactive document. Ooh, error. We're going to get to the actual ideas in a bit. Really simple ideas. I'm surprised nobody's doing this. Such a huge opportunity. All right. I'm being patient. I think there's a faster way. I think I kind of know what their budget is. What waste manage and revenue. Yeah, so revenues for the fourth quarter were 3.25 billion. So it looks like the revenues have kind of fallen by $1 billion in 2015 compared to 2014, but it's still in the range of $13 billion, which is a lot of money. I don't know if this is for all of North America or this is for United States only, because waste management operates in more than one country. But what they have competitors, obviously. Whoops, it's a link I shouldn't. Waste management. They have competitors, and if you just kind of Google waste management competitors, I think this is the link I was kind of showcasing earlier on. There's a whole bunch of companies. One of these companies is going to realize and recognize the need for disrupting the mechanism through which how their operations and processes are actually conducted right now. And that thing itself leads the entire industry ripe for disruption. This is a very, very ripe area for disruption. It has not changed a lot in 20, 30 years that I've been watching the process, just observing it every week, every week is the same thing. A truck comes in, somebody gets out of the truck, hauls the trash in the truck. There's one that's usually for the garbage, another one for recyclables, and now there's a third one, which is part of the garbage disposal service, which is uh, basically the disposable kind of groceries, organic trash for that matter, which is gold, because it's just pure fertilizer, organic material. I don't know how they separate the salts, but anyways, a lot of money is to be made here. So this is just some basic calculation. Even if I think if you say on average, it's gonna take, I don't know, some of these cities are huge. For a city like a size of Shanghai, yeah, you're definitely looking at $1 billion operation. And there's a whole bunch of cities that have a population of 10 million or more. So when you kind of factor in that it takes $200 million for a city, the population of 22 million people, Chicago population, let's take 2014 statistics. Chicago's population is actually declining. So about 3 million people, right? So if it takes around $141 million to do garbage disposal for a city of 3 million people, then you just kind of, there's a formula here. You just kind of factor in the price per, like a million people, and you just multiply or kind of factor in the actual population and you multiply it by that to be able to come up with the sum. So let's say we say there's about 100 cities worldwide, and let's say it's going to take any city over 5 million people, it's going to take, let's make it economical. So it's not exactly going to be 141 million multiplied by 2. Wow, there's a lot of cities, 4 million and over. So let's say there's 50 cities. So that's 14 billion here, and let's round it off to $200 million multiplied by 50. Yeah, so that's another 10 billion. Um, and you say 141 million multiplied by 50. 8 billion, 7.5 billion. So we're approximately looking like at least in the range of $20 billion in revenue. Um, Actually, it's going to be much more considering that waste management makes tens of billions of dollars picking up doing waste disposal services in the United States alone. I think the actual revenues are going to be way higher. So I think this is a pretty huge opportunity. So the idea is actually really simple. Everything that the humans are doing right now using transportation systems is something that can be automated. I see no reason why a robot cannot get off of a truck, pick up the trash bin, and dump it in the truck. It is a simple, mind numbing process. I, I should, this is an exception to, I don't know if I already shared this. Uh, I really like the guys who are doing these jobs. I always, when I see them, I always say hello to them. They're super friendly, just good Canadian guys. However, the kind of jobs where like it's stuff like garbage picking outside of the TDC, generally, like I would say 7 or 8 times out of 10, I don't. It doesn't feel like those individuals are happy with their jobs. So I don't know what the actual reasons are. I think the people who are driving the truck, I think, are paid a little bit more versus the individuals who are just picking up the trash outside of civic institutions or public municipal owned governments and facilities. I think, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's the money or if it's something else. But regardless, I think this is one of the areas that machines can do, machines should do, and if machines can do this service, then I think whoever moves in first here and whoever gets the first mover's advantage will disrupt the industry. They're going to start small, they're going to start deceptively, and pretty soon, in a couple of years, it will be a radical disruption that would end up disrupting what you've just witnessed by some exponential margins. So, how will this work? Well, like I said, waste disposable is a kind of like an industry. Excuse me. I realized some of my older videos, which were supposed to be private, every time I took a sip, I made a little noise. So I'm more conscious of that now. Anyways, so yeah, because this one's not private. Anyways, so what was I gonna say? Yeah, so waste disposal by itself is a diverse industry. There's a whole bunch of things happening here. There's the municipal waste, there's the industrial waste, there's different categories within each of these regions, like some of the examples I've already shared, residential versus public, different categorizations, parks, recreation, so on and so forth. Um, However, all of these jobs pretty much follow a standardized process. It's a very, very standardized process. There's very little skills that are required in order to be able to do a job like this. I'm sure with an institution like Ontario or Canada, where a lot of these functions are standardized, there are pretty much certifications for everything. Everything's heavily regulated, which is another conversation. I'm pretty sure there are requirements for something like this in Canada, but I can't foresee why something like this will not be disrupted by machines, by automation. So going back to these examples, when it comes to the trucks, trucks are becoming self-driving. So the truck itself is self-driving. Then the only other function when it comes to the disposal of the garbage is somebody getting off the seat and getting to the back of the truck. That's how it's designed today. Sometimes on the side, sometimes in the back. Like I said, hauling the trash and throwing it in the truck. Then it compresses the trash, and you got to make sure I'm in the video. And actually, I can make this a little bigger. Yeah, so the trash is kind of compressed, and you kind of go on from there. Same thing with the recyclables. Same thing with the organic trash. Um, I can't foresee why a machine couldn't do that, and I'll get to the other idea in a bit. But so let's talk about uh, picking garbage on its by itself. So imagine this reality is already happening. The idea that's being discussed right about now, and what would happen is if say there was a robot outside of a um, let's say transit system. There's a transit system used by hundreds of thousands of people every day, hundreds of thousands of people every day, and not peoples. And you obviously have trash. So what the machines would do is there would be a diverse range of machines, and the purpose is the same: to clean and sorry to keep the facility clean, sanitize it, And again, you can do this very easily with machine vision. You don't even need advanced algorithms. You just need basic algorithms that evolve and learn and adapt over time. And with cloud computation or computation being done on the cloud, analysis being done on the cloud, whatever one machine learns, the logic is replicated to the other one or the other machine automatically. So if you have a classifier, if you have some kind of a neural net, then using machine vision algorithms, you train the neural net to say, well, here's a piece of crumpled Kleenex. Pick it up and put it in your basket. Like, where the robot could have an accompanying basket that it kind of leverages as a temporary storage facility or mechanism. Or it would say, here's a piece of envelope. Nobody is claiming it, so just pick it up and put it in the basket, right? Or it might see, I don't know, like a pack of chewing gum, or it could be anything like that. As opposed to something like a teddy bear, the machine could be trained to say, well, that's a teddy bear. Somebody probably lost it. So just pick it up with a clean pair of like clamps or arm or whatever, and please go and deposit it in the lost and found repository. Um, you can actually do a whole bunch of things on top of that. You can have machines that do a quasi kind of a role, as opposed to just kind of waste disposable. Sorry, waste disposable. So, as opposed to just waste disposal, the machines could be equipped with not just lidar, but some kind of a camera, the whole bunch of cameras at that. They could kind of function as a security device. So you could have like cross kind of a model, which would kind of lower the spend for law enforcement too. And I have a whole bunch of other ideas about law enforcement. I also see that area very ripe for disruption. Um, super ripe for disruption. So coming back to waste, kind of the process of picking garbage, I think it's very ripe for disruption. And you just kind of build the models up, and the job for the human would then change. We'll probably create more jobs. I don't know how many more jobs will be created. I haven't had a chance to think about that per se, but it's not going to be as many jobs as there are right now. So I don't know, like if there's a city of 3 million people, which hire about, I don't know, like 10,000 people for collection and maintenance of garbage facilities, then it's probably going to be less than that. But what's going to happen is the job wouldn't be as it wouldn't require as much toil. So as opposed to the person, as in the human, the biological human actually doing the work, the human would then be kind of like sitting in a kind of network operations center or some kind of a monitoring facility, just making sure everything is smooth and functional. The robots will have cameras embedded within their systems, multiple cameras, so the operator would have a real time kind of a hook into what the robot's doing. They might be monitoring other things like cybersecurity threats. You don't even have to have the robots plugged onto the internet, but if something goes wonky, there's got to be there will be kind of fail-safe procedures in order to be able to just kind of shut the machine down, and a human operator would be dispatched to that site right away with the faulty robot being replaced and being taken to a facility where it can be repaired, and diagnostics being run on it, kind of like data from Star Trek. I'm not saying Brent Spiner or Data is that robot. He was a very intelligent robot. But this is not a conversation about age of spiritual machines. I'm just talking about standardized functions, making use of technology right now in order to be able to reduce toil and make these jobs more intelligent. And we can pay the people doing these kind of jobs a lot more because by definition they would be systems engineers or operators. So it becomes a white collar job. good quality paying job, and you reduce the spend, make a lot of money, save the money for the taxpayer, and you basically have efficiencies throughout the system. So yeah, I mean, using the technology in the cloud, the system learn and adapts with every interaction. Those interactions are replicated across uh, the swarm. It would kind of be like a swarm technology. It's distributed computing from the perspective of one machine learning something. Not a distributed computing, more like swarm computing. One machine learns something, and the again like the learning is replicated to another machine right away. There can be a diverse set of machines doing a variety of different tasks. So imagine kind of like a robot like Boston Dynamics, Big Dog, or Valkyrie. They've got like bipedal robots now, the ones with the wheel. Um, I don't see anything scary about that. It's moving a little too fast. You probably don't want robots doing these crazy things in public settings, as in jumping and whatnot. It has to be benign. It has to have softer expressions. Maybe like put a screen there with a smiley face. Like if somebody's actually stopping by, looking at the robot, it maybe acknowledges that, smiles back at them, and says something like, "How are you?" The basic interactions. Maybe I can help you with something. The person's like, "Oh, sure, I'm looking for directions," and you can kind of program those kind of things in there as well. Like I said, quasi services, value add, see how these things can perform multiple operations across the board as opposed to just garbage picking or waste disposal. I think I could go on. Like I love thinking about things like this in order to be able to kind of bring about more efficiency and make use of should move this more technology in order to be able to enable the future. Um, I do believe that we are at this kind of tipping point where GNR and other technologies would start going more mainstream. As more time passes by, genetics, nanotechnology, and robotics will make more inroads into our society and our lives. And being a singularitarian, I don't uh, I don't think there will be any distinction. I think there's going to be less and less distinction of what percentage of us is human and what percentage of us is a machine. But this is not a conversation about that. I'm just saying that this is an industry that is ripe for disruption, and whoever takes the lead, whoever is focused on what I'm sharing right now, will have the first movers advantage, and obviously others will notice, and there's going to be competition, and in a Darwinian fashion, uh, hopefully the best company emerges on the top in an ethical way. So this is just my idea for making use of more robotics and some of the other technologies plus plus in order to be able to bring about efficiencies in a system that has not seen a lot of innovation for the 30 plus years that I have observed waste management services uh, function. I just wanted to elaborate on that idea about the diverse range of robots. So yeah, going back to that example, imagine like a slightly larger, like a human-sized robot walking into a facility, but then it would also have these ancillary, I can't say the word, it would also have these other robots that would kind of emerge, and they would do different functions. Maybe they would be drones. So if it's like in a park kind of a setting, it would take a lot of time and effort for like a bipedal robot to go on 2 feet and cover the whole distance of the park. But what if the drones are released and they go high up, say like 200, 400 feet in the air, and they have like this eagle vision, and they can zoom in, and then they do a quick scan. It's a quick calculation, and it's done right there on the spot, and that sends the information back to the robot on the ground, and then that robot knows exactly where to go based on the information that's been provided. Wouldn't that save so much time, effort, and money as opposed to somebody kind of walking around searching for the trash and how it's done today? You could like clear up the whole place in a very tiny amount of time, and then it would just walk away to another facility or go back in storage or something like that. Uh, Same kind of logic could apply to um, like a urban setting. Drones would get out and then they would help with the facilitation of picking up the trash, maybe off hours when there's not a lot of people around. And you already have robots that do things like Roomba does the sweeping, it does the mopping now. Sorry, the vacuum and the mopping, because there's a mopping robot and there's the Roomba itself, which is a vacuum cleaner. Then they have another one, I think, which has been in operation for a couple of years, which goes into the troughs and cleans out all the leaves and whatnot. Um, there could be others. These are the ones I know of, and I think there's a infinite number of ways that a diverse set of robotics could emerge that would help us with the civic maintenance of our communities. Um, I am of the opinion that this should be a private company. I don't think this should be a public company. And I think by having more of private companies competing in this space, because garbage picking is not the government's response. It should not be the government's primary responsibility. I don't think so. Not at least for the next couple of decades. But yeah, more innovation and competition in this arena is good. Um, the question that will emerge is emerging in the consciousness, and rightfully so, is what will happen to the people who will be displaced by these technologies, and that's not the in the scope of this discussion. There's already individuals like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Stephen Hawkins, Mark Cuban now. A whole bunch of individuals are talking about. General Petraeus actually even made a small comment about this in one of his interviews. There's a whole bunch of people talking about this issue, and the issue of jobs and displacement is an issue that I've also shared my thoughts on in respect to the inevitable need for what I think will be a universal basic income that needs to be done intelligently, because you don't want classes and kind of stagnant classes emerging in society where there's no upward mobility for individuals born in those communities. Not unlike right now with the economically distressed communities. But yeah, we don't want that to happen. We want basic income to be done intelligently. And I've shared some thoughts about this on Singularity Hub before their site went no comments and all my comments got wiped out. Some of the videos I made, some notes in my Google Drive. But this is not a conversation about that. I think it's inevitable that these technologies will displace workers, and we need to have a solution for that. And we need greater civic participation, more people talking about these kind of things, so that the problem is defined in a richer context. Because nobody really has the answers right now. We can't get to an answer before we've defined the solution. Sorry, defined the problem, looked at the data, and only after doing a couple of those cycles and looking at this problem in a distributed fashion will better solutions, better definition of the problem will emerge. So, anyways, this is my idea for leveraging new age emerging technologies in order to be able to bring about innovations or disruptions in the realm of waste disposal. And thanks for watching.